Now they say that revenge is sweet, but in football, this feeling of revenge is way sweeter. In this world of online wars and back and forth, stands tall the art of getting one over another football team. This feeling of revenge is a feeling that brews within the soul and grows, fueled by negative feelings and you wanting to get this sense of justice restored. And this is what I like to call the beauty of revenge in football. And I think the only place where we can rightfully start this video is a game between Atletico Madrid and Juventus. A game that happened back in 2019 but feels just like yesterday, with the main premise being Ronaldo up against Diego Simeone's defensive unit. A newly energized Ronaldo coming off a transfer that saw him move from Real Madrid to Juventus. And in the Metropolitano in the first leg, Diego Simeone's army showed up to shut up shop against Cristiano Ronaldo. On the night, Atletico Madrid won 2-0 with Diego Simeone's men throwing everything they could at this Juventus front line, stopping every shot that they took, holding up the ball and hitting them on the counter. Ronaldo, being a newly formed striker, was locked up by the Atletico Madrid defenders, and even though there were chances here and there for him, he couldn't eat them up. And at the end of this 90 minutes where all the Atletico Madrid players celebrated, Diego Simeone showed his true character. A character that had lingered throughout his entire career. This was displayed in full show, taunting the Juventus fan base but also a former Real Madrid legend in Cristiano Ronaldo. And this gesture would linger within the heads of these Juventus players going into that second leg. Now during this game, Ronaldo entered the pitch with a mission to not only get back at Diego Simeone, but Atletico Madrid, a team that he had conquered so many times during his career at Real Madrid. He had a point to prove. He did not move to Juventus to be mediocre. It was time to make a statement. And I think from what I remember, he did just that, scoring a hat-trick in the second leg to lead Juventus to a 3-0 victory, with 2 high-flying headed goals and what else but a penalty to seal the deal. With the weight of not only his team but also his legacy on the line, Ronaldo stepped up for this penalty, slotting it away, in before running to the corner flag and hitting his famous celebration, with the sound of "Soo" reverberating through the entire stadium. This was pure revenge, and it would go on to be even sweeter. Not only did Ronaldo celebrate with his usual celebration, but after this game had ended, he replicated the celebrations of Diego Simeone, taunting back the Atletico Madrid fan base, but also the Argentinian manager, showing that it was his actions that really ignited the flame within him to have this performance. And I think this moment was a clear turning point in Ronaldo's career at Juventus, proving that he was still at the top of his game and one of the best players in the world. And of course, looking back on it now, we know how much damage Ronaldo did during his time at Juventus. Now this next one on this list involves Jose Mourinho returning to Stamford Bridge and taking on Chelsea for the first time since his sacking, also known to me as the return of the dead man. Now back in September of 2007, Jose Mourinho was dismissed by Chelsea after previously leading them to successful seasons, winning 2 league titles and also going on an amazing tier of form. Jose Mourinho was left in the dust, with his departure coming as a shock to a lot of Chelsea fans at the time, especially with the legacy that he created at Chelsea becoming the special one. But he moved on and eventually would go on to manage Inter Milan, a time in which Jose Mourinho saw some of the peaks of his career. And during Inter Milan's Champions League run that would go on to become so iconic, Mourinho came up against who else but Chelsea, an old foe to say the least. A team that still had some of his key players that he utilised during his time there. Guys like John Terry, Frank Lampard and Didier Drogba, who all thrived under Jose Mourinho, would have to go against him for 2 legs. And this of course triggered this revenge story within media during this time, with a lot of people saying that if Mourinho was able to get past the round of 16 and beat this Chelsea side, he would prove to them that he was bigger than the club. Now this game started off quickly with Diego Milito scoring within the first 5 minutes, a striker that would go on to really rule this entire tournament. But Chelsea weren't backing down. Throughout the entire 90 minutes, they would pop off shots against Inter Milan, with Kalou having a penalty shout, Lampard taking shots, and Didier Drogba trying his best up against Walter Samuel and Lucio. And after half time, this Chelsea pressure would eventually cause the Inter Milan side to fold, with Solomon Kalou getting his goal. But this joy that Chelsea fans felt when seeing Kalou score was short-lived, because Cambiasso, a bald-headed beast, smashed the ball into the back of the net. This moment making the entire San Siro erupt. But Chelsea would go into the second leg confident, because to them at least they still had an away goal. A goal that would count as double if the scores remained the same. Could this Chelsea side filled with Mourinho's ex-misfits really do a job on Inter Milan? This would eventually be decided back at Stamford Bridge. And it seemed like this running theme of defence and attack would remain the same in the second leg. The game was filled with stray tackles and also stray shots, with most of them going wide, untidy touches and no real control on the game. Each side sharing the possession quite fairly. But eventually this disdain that the Inter Milan players had probably inherited from Mourinho came through. They wanted to go through as much as they wanted to win for Mourinho. And eventually it was Samuel Eto'o who breached the deadlock, sealing the deal for Mourinho's men late on in the game. But I think the real standout two throughout the entire tie were Lucio and Walter Samuel. These two were physically dominant and put their bodies on the line whenever Drogba came close to the goal. Interceptions, tackles, headers away, they did it all in this tie. And I think them two especially summarise this Jose Mourinho team, built on these foundations of steel. These two were the respite for the Inter Milan players, especially because they kept making mistakes against this Chelsea side. But time and time again, Julio Cesar with a black eye, Lucio and Walter Samuel were there to save the day, with this story of revenge ending in a humble post-match interview after the leg. But I think the true revenge is that Mourinho's side would eventually win the entire tournament, showing up not only this Chelsea side but also the entirety of football.
I'm not happy because Roman lost. I'm not happy because Chelsea supporters go home sad. I'm happy with our happiness, not with their unhappiness.
Pause this video right now and make sure you guys are subscribed to the Jib Rules faithful. Also, like the video. Why have you not done that? And finally guys, if you want to support the channel even more, you can become a member with the top link in the description and get access to a new weekly podcast where we'll talk about any game that happens that week. Now in the 2019/20 season, an unexpected rivalry would blossom, commencing again in the round of 16 when Borussia Dortmund took on PSG, with this clash featuring a cast that was star-studded. A Dortmund side that were coming up in the ranks, Jadon Sancho flourishing week after week, becoming one of the best wingers in the world, also harbouring the talents of a Moroccan fullback, Hakimi. And finally, the cherry on top of the cake, Erling Haaland starting up front, a brand new striker that was taking over European football, inserting his name with some of the best players in the world. But this PSG side that they came up against had some of the best players in the world, with a front three of Di Maria, Mbappe and who else but Neymar Jr. And the first leg at the Signal Iduna Park didn't really go to plan for this multi-million-pound team. Despite tension throughout the entire game, Haaland broke the deadlock in the 69th minute after a shot was parried into his direction. Capitalising on this mistake, Haaland drew first blood. But Thomas Tuchel's side were not just going to give in like that, with a mazy run and a ball across the box heading into the path of Neymar Jr., who slotted it away. But before they could even finish celebrating, Dortmund were already on the attack, with the ball being given to Haaland, and what else does this guy do? He thrashes the ball into the back of the net, shaking the goal on impact. The stadium goes wild. These Borussia Dortmund players have shocked this team of all-stars. And with PSG only managing one away goal, they had to turn up when Dortmund came to their home ground. But this result that these PSG players needed came with an incentive, because going into this second leg, Erling Haaland would make a social media post, following up with a quote declaring that Paris is my city, a statement that would eventually go to bite him in the batty crease, adding fuel to a fire that was already burning. Going into that second leg, it was like a theme of Brazilian samba started to play, because even though this side was based in France, it was led at the time by a Brazilian magician. 28 minutes in and a ball goes into the box, and who else is there to header it away? Neymar Jr. diving in, starting a comeback. with his celebration explaining all that we needed to know. And by the end of the first half, the game was already over, with Bernat scoring the second. PSG led 2-0, and for the entire game, they displayed their dominance, with Neymar again being one of the key players that ran the show. It was his work, his effort and control that really dictated a lot of the game. And of course, that social media post that Haaland made lingered in the heads of the PSG players once that final whistle was blown, with Neymar making a post that Paris is our city, not yours, and a lot of the PSG players going on to mock Erling Haaland's celebration. This was pure football revenge at its finest, and I was loving it. Thomas Tuchel's men would eventually reach the final but ultimately lose to Bayern Munich, dampening the mood on what would have been a historic campaign. Just imagine if Neymar and Mbappe were able to pull it off. Now this next one I like to call revenge taken quickly. And again, it takes place in the Champions League, this time coming in the semi-finals. Now in 2019, Liverpool lost 3-0 at the Camp Nou to Barcelona. This was supposed to be their redemption arc, with a lot of their core players still being in the primes of their careers, but they couldn't turn up when it mattered the most in the first leg of this Champions League tie, and this front three ran rings around a lot of the Liverpool players. Liverpool had some explaining to do in that second leg. They had everything to prove, but I think it was lined up perfectly because Barcelona had to go to Anfield, a place notorious for having one of the best atmospheres in English football. A sound that feels like you're almost playing against an army of players, not just 11 on a pitch. They absolutely dominated in this game, with two of the unsung heroes in the squad coming up big. Wijnaldum with 2 crucial goals, and who else but Divock Origi, with that iconic moment of Trent taking the corner quickly and Divock Origi putting it in the back of the net. This Liverpool side did the unthinkable. With Divock Origi playing a full 90 minutes, you saw 100% of his power. The energy, the fight, the passion from the likes of Robertson, Trent and Van Dijk at the back, all the way to their makeshift front line that consisted of the likes of Shaqiri and Origi. This was not only revenge but justice for this Liverpool side that had been done dirty so many times in the season prior. And I think this ultimately triggered the decline of Barcelona, because the previous year they suffered a loss to Roma in the quarterfinals, and then going up against Liverpool thinking that they would bounce back, they did it again. But just the other day they destroyed Real Madrid, so who actually cares? Now the next revenge story in football I'd like to talk about is revenge without hair, aka Arjen Robben's revenge on Borussia Dortmund. Now Arjen Robben's career has been defined by some spectacular moments, but I think few are as impactful as his last minute winner against Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League final back in 2013. This was a moment that was deeply rooted by disappointment, a revenge story that was brewing for some time, with it stemming from a missed penalty in the 2011/12 season. Robben would miss a crucial penalty in the midst of the title race, a miss that would not only break Robben but break Bayern Munich that season, leading to Dortmund winning the league. But in the 2013 Champions League final, these two sides faced off again, a time where German football was so dominant, not only on the domestic stage but internationally too. And it took place at Wembley Stadium, filled with tension and high stakes. The likes of Royce and Lewandowski going up against Robben, Ribéry and Thomas Müller. And it was that duo that would link up first in the game, with Ribéry passing to the bald-headed fraud who put it across the box for the lanky beast Mandzukic. But Dortmund weren't going out like that. They managed to swindle a penalty for a Dante mistake. The beast with the afro actually has no brain in that afro, and Gondowan, a man that doesn't look anything like he used to, steps up and puts the ball in the back of the net. Pow! 1-1. But it wasn't Batman and Robin that would overturn the score before the 90th minute. It was a duo that a lot of us like to call robbery, with Ribéry playing a ball into Robben in the 89th minute. And with thoughts of not only redemption but revenge in his head, Robben calmly slotted the ball past the Borussia Dortmund keeper, securing a 2-1 victory for Bayern at Wembley Stadium and absolutely going ballistic. Robben's goal was not just a match winner but a personal triumph, and this Champions League title would clinch and trigger an era of domination for Bayern Munich. Now tell me one of your favourite revenge moments in football. It can be a personal experience from yourself or from an actual game. Revenge is a sweet feeling, but we shouldn't base what we do in life on revenge, because it will always eventually bite you back. But of course, it's been Jib Rules back with another video. Make sure you stay blessed, stay safe, and peace.